Alrighty, so it's time to do the review in terms of the Saturday game that happened just a couple of days ago. And by the way, when I was writing the board today to put all the notes of the Saturday game, I did smell some smoke that was coming outside, and that is not a great sign whenever I smell smoke because we are in the midst of the wildfire season in California. And although this year, wildfire season, it's not as bad as I think last year in terms of the air quality wise, because last year it got so bad that, when you watch those kind of apocalyptic movie that has like the orange skies and stuff like that, yeah, that was last year. And there was one point last year where the sky basically just turned orange, and it almost like it was an apocalyptic kind of stage. And I'm not quite sure, are we going to get to that point again this season? But yeah, at least this season, even with the wildfires that's going on in California, at least it hasn't put in terms of the air quality as bad as it is, or at least in my area that is. I mean, if you go up to Sacramento and this past weekend, the air quality was incredibly bad, and this is really one of the big reasons why I actually decided to make some last minute change in my Sports Hub series. Instead of going to Sacramento, I basically ground hop in Oakland. But that being said, let us actually get into talking about the first game of the Saturday action. And just a disclaimer, I actually didn't watch any of these games except for this one between Atlanta versus Nashville SC, because it turns out that if a game is on Twitter, that means they're not going to have the condensed highlight, and I basically was forced to watch this game fully, which, I don't mind watching an MLS game in its entirety, but what I do mind is the fact that I have to watch this on Twitter. And I kind of watched it while the two other their Sunday game was taking place, and the last two Sunday game that was taking place. So I did kind of put it on mute in terms of Twitter, because you know how much I don't like to watch a game on Twitter because of commentary reason. But in terms of this one in the Southeastern Derby between Atlanta versus Nashville, it was Nashville getting their first road win of the season and kind of spoiled Gonzalo Pineda coaching debut, as that's kind of something I mentioned about how it's going to be interesting to see how his debut is going to go. Well, it turns out to be a very frustrating one because, on paper, I feel like Atlanta probably deserve at least a point out of this game because they definitely had a lot of chances to potentially score a goal in this one, but in the end, they just could not quite solve the Nashville defense, and also unable to do well in terms of their finishing throughout this game. But early on, they thought they got themselves a penalty after Alistair Johnson fouled Bello what looked like it was inside the box, but when they go to VAR, it was deemed that it was outside the box, and it was the correct call. I mean, when you clearly look at it, that foul happened just outside the box for a free kick, which on that free kick, Barco tried to curl one in, but it was punched away from Willis. Atlanta definitely looking like the better side in the first 10 minutes, and I thought Nashville was going with their usual low block kind of way, as they always do on the road. Although I thought throughout this game, with the low block that they were putting, it did kind of at times show some vulnerability. They weren't as locked down as you would see this Nashville low block usually is, especially on the road. And Atlanta did generate some chances. Bello puts it wide from close range in the 19th minute before Arajo. Honestly, I still don't know how to actually pronounce his name. Like, on paper, you think it's Araujo, but that's just the Spanish pronunciation, and since he's Brazilian, you have to pronounce it in the or you have to pronounce it in the Portuguese kind of way, because, there is no Brazilian is not a language, it's Portuguese, and I'm still having trouble in terms of trying to pronounce it correctly. I mean, surprisingly, the Twitter commentator actually pronounced it correctly, which is kind of one of the rare names that they usually pronounce it right that is not a Spanish name. But yeah, it's I'm gonna just say Arajo for now on, and if someone want to correct me in the comment section, feel free to do so. But he hits it wide from long range before he also hits it high from close range. I thought he had a good game in this one, and I think he was very unlucky to not score a goal in this one. In the 40th minute, Guzan did deny Mukhtar, and slowly, after Nashville was kind of under siege throughout the first half, kind of started to get back into this game. Rios puts it wide from close range in the 44th minute before he scored right on the stroke of halftime from Lovitz and Mukhtar, and Nashville was able to take a 1-0 lead, and this first half kind of is a classic cliche of what happened when you're the better team and you can't put away your opportunity, and then the opposition, as soon as they get back into the game and they had a couple of chances, they put it in the back of net, and is an example of why you're losing. And that kind of is the metaphor for Atlanta heading into halftime, as somehow they down 1-0 against Nashville SC. Now in the second half, there was another shout for a penalty for Atlanta. This time they thought there was a handball in the box, but it was not given. Willis then denied Araujo from close range. Before, I thought Atlanta really kind of picked up where they left off in the first half, which was push for the equalizer. Guzan did deny Leal from long range. Actually, I don't know why I wrote but missed wide there. But yeah, he denied Randall Leal from long range before Martinez puts it just wide on the header in the 76th minute. And I just thought, yeah, it just feels like it's not going to be Atlanta's day. And definitely not a day for Joseph Martinez too, because as soon as he missed this header wide from close range, he kind of almost ripped part of his jersey off and just smack, or basically kick the post as hard as he can, because you can clearly tell he was frustrated, and his reaction kind of just summarized Atlanta's day, as he just could not put the ball into the back of the net. And a couple of minutes after Atlanta had looked like the one last chance that they got, heads up play this was from Joe Willis, knowing the fact that Guzan did go forward to try this out, be part of the attack, and try to maybe score an incredible equalizer goal as a goalkeeper. But this is a heads up play for Joe Willis, just kind of punting that ball upfield, knowing Guzan is not in his net. And then Randall Leal basically just kind of puts it into the empty net, kind of almost like a hockey style kind of goal that Nashville SC scored right at the end. But yeah, that of course does give them the second goal to pretty much kill this game off. And in the end, they win 2-0 against Atlanta United, as the shots in this one, 10 shots compared to 16 that Nashville has, 5 shots on goal compared to 2 that Atlanta has, 5 shots off target compared to 6 that Atlanta has, 6 shots on block compared to 2 that Atlanta has, and possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that Nashville SC has. And yeah, it's a big win for Nashville, finally getting that first row win. And I wouldn't say this is kind of like a statement win for them yet to maybe cement themselves to be a top playoff contender in the Eastern Conference, but it definitely does help the fact that it does increase their chances of potentially making the playoffs, because we know they have a lot of road games coming up. 6 of their next 8 games is going to be on the road, and the 2 home games that they have are against really tough Eastern Conference team, that is NYCFC and Orlando City. So we're going to see throughout this tough stretch that they can they sustain themselves to still stay in the position that they are in the playoffs. But for Atlanta, I know this is going to be a bit of a speed bump in terms of the resurgence. I'm not going to judge Gonzalo Pineda just on this game. I mean, it's just crazy for me to just say after one game he hasn't done a good job. This was kind of largely because Atlanta just kind of had one of those days where they just could not find their shooting boots to put the ball into the back net. But there was definitely some promising that Gonzalo Pineda brought to this team, and now that he's going to have a full week of training and kind of get his message across the team, I think Atlanta should be able to bounce back in the next game. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Red Bulls and the Chicago Fire. So the Fire definitely got a huge victory in this one to kind of maybe stop the bleeding a little bit in terms of them having their playoff contention slipping away. But that being said, one team that definitely have their playoff contention start to slip away is the New York Red Bulls, and this is definitely got to be concerning, knowing the fact that the Red Bulls is a team that don't do well on the road, and now they are dropping points, and especially dropping points against teams that they might be fighting for playoff position. Yeah, this does not look good for this team. But early on, they had a good opportunity to score the opening goal, as Wiki Carmona is denied by Shuttleworth from close range. Before there was a shout for the penalty from the Red Bulls faithful that was not given. Caden Clark did bend one that goes wide in the 24th minute. The Red Bulls were definitely looking lively and tried to score the first goal, but it's actually the Fire that scores the first goal of the game, kind of against a run of play, as Robert Baric gets on the score sheet to give the Fire a 1-0 lead. Originally, that, of course, was deemed an offside, and you're just thinking with how Robert Baric, being one of the most cursed number 9 in this league this season, you thought that, yeah, it sounds about right. The fact that he had, when he did put the ball in the back net, he basically been, or his goal is basically disallowed by by an offside flag. But when they go to VAR to see whether or not it is an offside, and Beric was kind of in an offside position, but because of this ball kind of bounced off two Red Bulls player, and anytime when that of course happened, the offside doesn't really matter anymore. And this was when they did find that of course the case, immediately they basically wave up the offside flag. And in some way, Beric was pretty lucky, the fact that the ball kind of put kindly to him, but with how much bad luck he has received this season, I think it was kind of about time that he finally does receive some good luck. And the Fire, of course, were up 1-0 heading into the second half. So we go to the second half. Clark missed from point-blank range in the 49th minute before he also puts it high from close range just 6 minutes later, and the Red Bulls, once again, was pushing for the equalizer. But that being said, as soon as I wrote that, the Fire almost made it 2-0 if it wasn't for Cornell denying Herberts from close range. Jimenez then puts it over the bar, and as the time kind of winds down, you can definitely see the Fire, they were dropping their lines, and they realized that they got to hold on to this 1-0 lead, even though they're going to have to soak up a lot of pressure from the Red Bulls. But in the 81st minute, Royer did hit it wide from close range before Madron actually almost killed the game off for the Fire as he struck the post from long range. But ultimately, the Fire was able to hold on to that 1-0 lead, as in the end, they of course got a huge 3 points against the Red Bulls on the road, and a rare road win. As the shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 9 that the Fire has, 2 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Fire has, 10 shots off target compared to 3 that the Fire has, 8 shots out of block compared to 2 that the Fire has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 42% possession that the Chicago Fire has in this game. And for the Red Bulls, they kind of got the Atlanta United treatment in this game, where no matter what they do going forward in front of goal, they just aren't able to put the ball into the back of the net. But unlike Atlanta United, where I said, it's just kind of a little bit of a speed bump for them, and they'll potentially bounce back in the next game, and kind of they will. When this good run that Atlanta has had, you knew that eventually there's going to hit a bit of a speed bump. You can't say the same thing about the Red Bulls. I mean, this has been a bad run for the Red Bulls, and this is the last thing they want to have, dropping more points at home, especially against a team that they should beat, and they did beat in the first ever meeting. But now they have lost the next 2 meetings, including the final one against the Chicago Fire. And this, they can definitely look back as this game as could be one of those one that they would look back where they should have won it if they want to have any chances of being in the playoff race. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is none other than El Tráfico. And if it wasn't for the Copa Tias match I talked about yesterday between Austin and FC Dallas, that basically no defense was played in that game, and it turns out to be an old-fashioned Texas shootout, this would have been probably the one that I would also said that basically no defense was played, and that this was kind of a very typical El Tráfico kind of matchup where that the scoreline is going to be a crooked number. And indeed that of course is the case, as it ends in a 3-3 draw between LAFC and the Galaxy. Now in the first half, there was a lot of empty seats at the bank for El Tráfico, and I was kind of shocked the fact that there was a lot of empty seats there. Like, I understand that LAFC is having a tough season this year, but this is definitely not a good look, and really kind of just emphasize the stereotype about LA sports fans, where the typical stereotype about LA sports fan is that when you're winning, they're definitely going to show up, but when you're not winning, they're not going to show up whatsoever. And it just feels like this is the case for LAFC fans, kind of almost abandoning their team when their team is not winning right now. And again, I know the general rule about being a sports fan is that it's always going to be tough to try to show up when your team is not doing well, but you just simply cannot abandon them after just one bad run of the season, and especially for a team that, yes, they have definitely underachieved this year, but they're still in the playoff race. And for such a big game like this is pretty much the game of the year for LAFC. It's kind of shocking that even fans did decide not to show up for this El Tráfico, and I would say that there probably was more Galaxy fans in this game, and there was definitely a lot of white that I've seen at the bank during this El Tráfico game. And that's definitely not a good look if you're LAFC, knowing the fact that the visiting team basically almost kind of took over the stadium in this one. Now in the 5th minute, Vasquez did puts it wide from close range before Palacio blazed it into the stands. I mean, when I look at that, I'm like, yep, we're in for a classic El Tráfico game where it's going to be pretty high scoring again, and there's going to be a lot of chances for both ends. Rodriguez did put it wide from long range in the 18th minute before we finally get El Tráfico, our first goal in El Tráfico, as Jovic gets first blood in El Tráfico in the 20th minute to give the Galaxy a 1-0 lead. They immediately show a graphics on Fox saying that LAFC have 0 win and 1 draw when they concede first. So if that stats basically tells you a story, is that when LAFC does concede a goal and they went down, they're probably not going to win, and they're not like a team that tends to be resilient and able to come back from a deficit early. But in the 22nd minute, Rossi did blaze it wide, which, you know, that kind of just summarized Rossi's form in the last couple of games, where he just cannot find a way to put the ball into the back of the net. Like when you struggle, it always seems like the net is closer than it is, and I feel like that's kind of the case with Diego Rossi. Is that, you know, that net might be gaping when he has a chance, but it feels very narrow now because of the way that he's been missing so many chances and kind of been out of form. Before, in the just 1 minute later, Orengo did try to tie it up for LAFC, but he puts it wide from 17 yards out. LAFC was definitely pressing for the equalizer, but as I wrote that, Galaxy almost got the second goal as Rivalson puts it high from 18 yards out. But LAFC did get a penalty in the 41st minute, and I think this is the second game in a row where they got a penalty right on the stroke of halftime. As this time, Heniken did help Orengo in the box. I mean, Orengo looks like he was going to hit that one in, and Heniken just kind of had to help him a little bit in the box to prevent him to do so. But obviously you cannot do that as a defender, and rightfully so. That was a penalty given to LAFC, which Orengo basically won the penalty, had the responsibility to score that one, which is kind of a bit surprising because I thought maybe Rossi would be the one that takes the penalty, even though I know Rossi is kind of out of form a little bit. He did take that penalty in the game against the Whitecaps and easily score that one, but they allow Orengo to take the penalty, and he actually almost missed this one because he actually hit this one off the post, but it's just one of those ones where it hits off the post, and fortunately for him, bounce into the back of the net, and just like that, the game was all tied up at 1 apiece, as that would be the scoreline heading into the second half of El Tráfico, where this is when, you know, if you thought the first half of El Tráfico was crazy, wait till you see what happened in the second half, because Atuesta immediately tried to chip Bon and try to give LAFC the lead, but Bon was able to tip that one over before Romero absolutely robbed Cabral in the back post, and I already said chances are already starting to fly in early, and you know that there's going to be not only goals that's going to be scored, but we're in a time where there could be a ton of goals that's going to score here in the second half. Bon did deny Rossi in the 57th minute before LAFC takes the lead, and it's Brian Rodriguez, and this hands down is the goal of the week. Like, I didn't even dare to put a question mark on this, because I know this is the goal of the week, because Brian Rodriguez basically just did a Messi-esque run where he basically took on the entire Galaxy back line inside the box and somehow able to put that one into the back net. And when you are able to do that and kind of do a Messi-esque kind of run, you know that you're going to definitely win the goal of the week. I mean, there should be no discussion that is definitely the goal of the week, and maybe even could be in contention for goal of the year, because you do not see that happen often, where one player just took on the entire back line of their opposition in the box and still able to finish off with a nice finish to give their team a goal, and in this case give LAFC a 2-1 lead. But just 5 minutes later, it almost was 3-1 as Bon was able to deny Rossi. I mean, again, Rossi just feels like he's been snake bit right now. But just 1 minute later, after the LAFC could have been 3-1 up, the game was all tied up again because Jovic would score his second goal from Leggett and Araujo to tie the game up at 2 apiece. And before the Galaxy maybe think about trying to have the momentum and get the third goal, LAFC immediately take the lead back. And it's Rodriguez again in the 66th minute. And if this is the Brian Rodriguez that we're going to see from LAFC, This is definitely great news for LAFC because they've been hoping that this is going to be the version of Brian Rodriguez that they have ever since they bought him about a year ago. And if he can continue to be looking as good as he did in this game, yeah, not only the fact that they might be able to find someone that can finally snap out of the funk that they're in terms of this attack. But I also kind of wrote after that goal, El Tráfico was at it again. I mean, you knew that I even said that with the chances that was flying in the beginning of the second half, things about to be crazy, and indeed it was the fact that we got 3 goals in a span of 8 minutes. Now, I will say this, eventually things kind of did calm down a little bit in this game, which I thought that favorites LAFC, because the last thing LAFC wants is this game continue to be chaotic and knowing the fact that the Galaxy could potentially get the equalizer. But if there's one thing that I also know about El Tráfico, just because things looks like it's calm, it's pretty much just the eye of the storm, and that that there's going to be one last twist in this game, and in my mind, I feel like it was just too good that this game was going to end 3-2 like that, and indeed it was, because in the 86th minute, Cabral would score from Araujo and Alvarez, and the game was all tied up once again at 3 apiece. And despite the fact that late in this game, both of these teams was trying to get that crucial 4th goal to win El Tráfico, it ends in a 3-or draw in this El Tráfico, as the shots in this one, 25 shots compared to 10 that the Galaxy had, 11 shots on goal compared to 5 that the Galaxy had, 8 shots off target compared to 3 that the Galaxy had, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that the Galaxy had, and possession-wise, 47% possession compared to 53% possession the Galaxy has in this game. And once again, this was, I think, another El Tráfico like the last one where LAFC kind of dominate the stat chart, but at the end of the day, they walk away with only a point out of this one. And in some way, this game kind of also summarized the season that LAFC is having this year, which is just a year where they just could not put the ball into the back net no matter what chances that they had. And credit to the Galaxy, they were the more clinical side in this one, and albeit they didn't get a win in this one, I think they will be definitely the more happier side, consider LAFC again had tons of chances in this game and also had tons of opportunity to really put this game away. But when you don't put the game away, and especially in El Tráfico, you're going to be haunted later in this game, and it's going to come back to bite you. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 4 games that happened in terms of the Saturday action. But yeah, moving on in terms of the next match is NYCFC and New England. So it's not often this year that we see the Revs ends up dropping all 3 points after the 90th minute, but it's especially not often we see New England get outplayed this badly as we saw in this game against NYCFC, who fully deserved the 2-0 victory and could have probably got more if it wasn't for some of the finishing that they had, and also Matt Turner kind of keep the scoreline a little bit more respectable. But early on, Medina had a big opportunity from close range, but he puts it high over the bar. Before Buxa did puts it high just 4 minutes in from close range. And early on, at least, things were kind of a little bit even as both teams kind of had 2 big opportunities. But that was kind of one of the time when New England did kind of look like they weren't being outplayed. Because after that, Morales almost gave NYCFC the lead, but he puts it wide on the volley. And then Rodriguez, just 11 minutes later, puts it over the bar after he was trying to, after he rounds the goalkeeper. And then Buxa basically puts it wide on the header. And I kind of wrote, this game was screaming for a goal because there was definitely chances for both teams. And eventually a goal was delivered. It happened in the 31st minute as Tati Castellanos, who has been red hot in these last couple of games, he scored for Maxi Morales. And originally this goal was disallowed because of offside, but they did go to VAR to see whether or not if Castellanos was able to stay onside, and indeed he was. The goal, of course, was given, the call was overturned, and NYCFC got a 1-0 lead. And then 3 minutes later, it almost was 2-0 after Maxi Morales tried to chip Turner from 40 yards out. I mean, we've seen this before with NYCFC, especially during the David Villa days, where I think David Villa would try to chip a goalkeeper, and I always will remember that memorable game against the Union where he basically chipped Andre Blake from about 50 yards out, and Maxi Morales was trying to do the same thing against another good goalkeeper, Matt Turner, but unfortunately this one just goes high. before Tristensen did puts it wide in the 41st minute as we head to halftime with a 1-0 lead for NYCFC. In the second half, Turner did deny Rodriguez from their near post, but NYCFC was definitely pushing for a second goal, and they would get that second goal. And it's Castellanos, again, scoring for Morales and Keaton Parks to make it 2-0 in favor of NYCFC. And all the fact that, Castellanos is just red hot right now. But it seems like we're starting to see a partnership between Tati Castellanos and Maxi Morales combined to each other. And if this is a partnership that's going to really thrive this NYCFC attack, yeah, watch out. This could be a really dangerous attack going forward. I mean, it was already a dangerous attack that they have, but if both of those guys can sink in throughout the entire part of the season, this team can definitely do some good thing later on. But in the 61st minute, Castellanos did have a chance for a hat-trick, but unfortunately he puts it high on the header before Medina should have scored as he had a free header. I mean, Jesus Medina was very unlucky to not get on the score sheet in this one. Had some big opportunity, and this was another one of those as he missed a free header from close range before Turner would actually deny Medina just 1 minute later. And I thought NYCFC was all over New England, which is something that I didn't think I would be saying during this run that New England was had, because again, coming into this game, this team has won 9 out of 10 games, but in this one, it definitely didn't look like they won 9 out of 10 games, and it kind of looked almost like the New England of what we saw from a couple of years ago, where they were kind of being one of the laughingstock of the Eastern Conference. And as I said that, NYCFC, of course, looked for a third goal. Tristensen did try to curl one in, but it goes wide from 19 yards out before Johnson did deny Gustavo Bolt from close range, as New England was kind of trying to get themselves back into the game. But ultimately, they weren't able to do so, as NYCFC would preserve the shutout as they win 2-0 in this one. As the shots in this game, 19 shots compared to 12 that New England has, 5 shots on goal compared to 1 that New England has, 11 shots off target compared to 9 that New England has, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that New England has, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to 48% possession in favor of NYCFC. And yeah, this is a statement win for NYCFC, knowing the fact that they want to get themselves back to near the top of the Eastern Conference, and in a game where they play against the best team in the league and they are able to do so, this is definitely a statement that we are definitely going to try to get ourselves back near the top of the table and maybe even get back to that second position that we held just a couple of weeks ago. But that being said, moving on, in terms of the next game is DC and the Union. So this is the first time in a long time that DC was able to get a win against the Union, because I've talked about how this matchup has always been in favor of the Union. And also, by the way, I just realized I forgot to put the stats of the game. I mean, I put the framework there, but I forgot to put the stats in terms of the game, so I'm just going to quickly look it up right now here. Or actually, you know what, I can just use my phone and basically get up throughout the app. But yeah, let me just, actually, you know what, I'll just quickly do this right now while I prepare to talk about what happened in this game. But overall, when you look at this one, DC, they finally were able to be more clinical in this game, because this was kind of another game where it looked like in the beginning, is this just one of those games once again for DC where they have tons of opportunity, but they just could not put the ball into the back of the net. In the first minute, Flores actually almost scored the fastest goal this season, as 18 seconds in, he basically puts it high over the bar before Flores had another chance just 5 minutes later, but he puts it wide from long range. And DC, as it has been the case, they were on the front foot early. Kamara puts it high from close range in the 11th minute before Blake did deny Gresso from close range in the 14th minute. And DC, again, I also kind of wrote that they were feeling like they're getting blue ball again, and that this has just looked like one of those games where they looked like they were not going to get that crucial goal, despite the fact that they were the better team and the opposition somehow is going to sneak in a goal there, and all of a sudden they find themselves 1-0 down. Because after there was a shout for a penalty, after Naha, of course, went down. Oh, by the way, I would really love to give credit to Andy Naha there, because you see so many times when a player went down in the box and cry for a penalty, they basically stay down in the box and hope that they would get a penalty instead. But that's not this case. I mean, this is a rare time where we see a player actually went down and hope that there was a penalty. They actually got back up quickly, and that was the case with Naha, knowing the fact that he didn't win the penalty, got up quickly, and even forced a save from Blake. And I feel like that's something that, for players, they need to do this more often. I mean, I know you're trying to kind of draw a penalty and trying to almost play act a little bit to win the penalty, but sometimes you need to just kind of keep going and maybe caught the opposition a little bit off guard, thinking that they have conceded a penalty. And this was kind of one of those times where the Union kind of stopped a little bit, thinking that they could see the penalty. But fortunately, Blake was just able to make a good save to deny Naha there, and DC a 1-0 lead. But like I said, just feels like this is just, again, one of those days where DC having tons of chances, but none, of course, goes in. And you know that the opposition was going to get a goal, and they find themselves 1-0 down. And it happened in this game, too. In the 22nd minute, Birnbaum unfortunately scored an own goal there against the run of plays to give the Union a 1-0 lead. But that being said, 5 minutes later, Blake did rob Reina full stretch there before the DC finally got themselves a penalty and a chance to get themselves back in the game. And originally, it wasn't given a penalty, but they did go to VAR to see whether or not if Powell indeed did chop down Reina in the box, and that, of course, was the case. So a penalty was given to DC, and it allowed Kamara to tie the game up for DC in this one, and a well-deserved goal, considering DC United was really dominant throughout this game. But we do head to halftime 1-1 between both of these teams, and in the second half, Alvis Powell fire one over Kempen as the Union looks like they're trying to sneak in another goal in to retake the lead, but it was DC who this is something that they haven't had the chance to do in the past couple of games, but they finally did it in this one, which is finally able to get that crucial goal to go ahead after all the pressure that they put in, as it's Jordi Reina that scores to make it 2-1 in favor of the Union in the 49th minute. I'll tell you what, whatever Hernan Losada has done to this attack has really revitalized Jordi Reina, because remember how Jordi Reina was kind of a forgotten man for the Vancouver Whitecaps, and now he looks like a guy that is on a mission to score as much goal as possible. Yeah, I mean, I did not think that was going to be a thing that we see for Jordi Reina, but he's been in incredible form lately, scoring a lot of goals, and at this time giving DC the lead back, and you can definitely feel that the momentum was with DC, and they're going to get that third goal. Although the Union did kind of start to find a foothold and kind of ride out that storm and look for a late equalizer. Martinez puts it wide from long range in the 87th minute. The Union was pushing for a last gasp equalizer, but ultimately DC would get the last goal of the game, as Roman Abila would score from Felipe to make it 3-1 in favor of DC. And with that goal that Abila scored, I think that's as much goal as he has scored for DC as it is for Minnesota. And, I'm not going to complain the fact that Abila is working out with DC, because, again, this is a thing that can happen sometime, where a player maybe when they are with a team and doesn't fit the system, they might need to go to a new team to have a change of scenery. And I thought that with Abila coming to DC, and especially with the way that he's always tends to be a slow kind of player, I didn't think that he would really fit in this DC system. But I kind of said the same thing with Jordi Reina, where I thought this was kind of like an afterthought signing that DC made last season. But whatever Hernan Losada has done to this attack has really got out the best of players that you did not think that they would be a dangerous threat going forward. And yeah, once again, Abila kind of proved me wrong, and certainly DC proved me wrong that he does fit into this system. And I'm not going to be mad at the fact that we let him go, because it's just one of those instances where Abila just didn't fit for Minnesota, and his time was pretty much up. But yeah, in the end, DC, of course, win 3-1 against the Union, as the shots in this one, 14 shots compared to 10 that the Union has, 9 shots on goal compared to 2 that the Union has, 9 shots, or actually no, 3 shots off target compared to 6 that the Union has. Both teams had 2 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, it was actually dead even at 50%, but in the end, DC no doubt had the better opportunity, and did something that they didn't do in the last couple of games, where despite having the better opportunity, they weren't being on the winning side. But this time, they were in the winning side, getting a huge 3 points against the Philadelphia Union. But now moving on into the last 2 games on this board, and the last 2 games of the Saturday action. Speaking of Minnesota, they got a win in this one against the Dynamo. And I got to be honest, they were outplayed in this game against the Dynamo. And, you know, despite the fact that they were kind of being outplayed throughout the game, the Dynamo, you know, there's a reason why they're on this 14 games winless run, which is now at 15, which is they aren't able they always find a way to potentially lose a game, and this was just one of those where when you're on a bad run like this, it seems like you're not going to get any luck, even though if you're the better team, and especially in front of goal. Although that being said, in the first minute, they actually jump out to a 1-0 lead just 56 seconds in, as Coco Carrasquilla scored his first goal for the Houston Dynamo, and I think that's his actually first MLS goal, as he scored from Fafa Pico to give the Dynamo a 1-0 lead, and that was the last thing I want the Loons to have. I mean, I know coming into this game, the Loons was a little bit shorthanded. They did not have Reynoso in this one, but that was the last thing I wanted to happen, and in some way, it's almost like they're trying to prove me right about the fact that I was really scared coming into this game for the Loons, and you didn't think that I would be scared and kind of not confident against a team that has winless in 14 games. But in the case of how this team has been struggling to score goals, and they're playing against a team that they literally have no success whenever they play on the road. Yeah, I was definitely not have a lot of confidence that Minnesota was able to get the victory, and that I thought this was finally the game for the Dynamo to end their endless winless run that they're on. But in the third minute, Nelson did have a milestone moment, as he actually recorded his first save in MLS, as he was able to deny Dotson, although it was a relatively easy save because Dotson did not hit that one hardly, and it just goes straight to Michael Nelson. But still, first ever save that he has recorded, certainly a moment that he will not forget. But definitely early on, the Dynamo was the better side, and the possession basically shows it. 64-36 in favor of the Houston. But in the 60th minute, Minnesota equalized. And, you know, if there is one thing that Minnesota did in this game, and one player that I desperately want him to get going, is Adrien Hunou. And in this game, he finally got going. And I'm really hoping, after seeing the performance that he has in this game, is the beginning of him start to get out of his funk. I mean, surely it has to be. Like, when you're a striker, you're basically fees on goals, and you have forms depending on the fact that if you're scoring enough. And, you know, knowing Adrien Hunou has really struggled in the last game, and it just feels like he's been kind of put into that snake bit part as a number 9, unable to find his form because of not scoring goals. Now that he's able to score goals, hopefully this will get him going a little bit. But yeah, he scored here from Finley to tie the game up at 1 apiece. But that lead that equalizer almost looked meaningless just 1 minute later, because Carrasquilla almost gave the Dynamo the lead back instantly, as the Loons almost did a schoolboy error where they, you know, there's always the saying, you're always the most vulnerable when you score, and they almost can see there, but Carrasquilla just puts that one wide. Before Miller was able to deny Urruti from close range, and then Fafa Pico, very unlucky to struck the post from long range in the 31st minute, and then Miller was able to deny not Miller, it was actually Urruti, that of course trying to score the go-ahead goal again for the Dynamo, but Miller was able to save that one. But he did give up a rebound to Lundqvist, who tried to follow it up but missed high there. But yeah, Houston was definitely pushing for a second goal and looked to try to get the lead back. Dorsey puts it high from close range in the 39th minute, and it just kind of feels like it's one of those moments where I'm just hoping, please, get to the halftime whistle without conceding a goal, Minnesota, because I just had a feeling if they do concede a late goal, they're probably not going to get the same luck that they had in the first half, where they gave up an early goal and somehow, in some way, against the run of plays, they score a goal to tie the game up. Now, in the second half, there was once again a couple of half chances for the Dynamo early, but I thought the Loons' defense was a little bit more sturdy compared to what we saw in the first half, which that defense was anything but sturdy from the Loons' back line. But in the 70th minute, Nelson did have to deny Hunou, but just 2 minutes later, Hunou gets on the score sheet again, as he scored from Finley and Audi, and there's not a lot of time I usually give more credit to the guy that scored the guy that registered the secondary assist compared to the guy that registered the main assist. But this is just one of those times where Fernando Adi, a guy that a lot of Minnesota fans, including myself, feel like it's kind of like an afterthought signing and kind of feels like more of a desperation signing, if anything. Well, he basically did a backheel kind of move, feeds it to Finley, who basically passed it to who knew to give the Loons a 2-1 lead. And I'll tell you what, instantly it feels like Audi has done much more with this team than he has during his time with Columbus and FC Cincinnati. Well, I would say equally, because at least Audi did score one goal for Cincinnati, but even though he wasn't on the score sheet in this one, this goal wouldn't have happened if Audi made that incredible back heel to feed it to Finley, who was able to pass to who knew to give the Loons a 2-1 lead up to that point. But as the time winds down, Houston was definitely pushing for the late equalizer, and the Loons, they decided to drop their lines, which is not a big surprise because this is what Adrian Heath always do, especially on road games late, where you just kind of drop their lines and hope that they can hold on to the lead. But this time, they were able to hold on to the lead as they win 2-1 in this one. Shots in this one, dead even at 10 shots apiece. 5 shots on goal for the 4 that Minnesota has. 3 shots off target for the 4 that the Dynamo has. 3 shots that was blocked for the 1 that Houston has. And possession-wise, 52% possession compared to 48% possession that Minnesota has in this game. And again, overall, a big victory for a team that, this is only the second road win that the Loons has had this season. And if they want to maybe get themselves in that conversation of top 4 spot, which is very key in the playoffs, because that's where you can get at least one home game, they need to win a couple of more road games, which is going to be a tall task for them to ask, because this team has historically never been a good road team. But that being said, for the Houston Dynamo, the winless run kind of continues, and I just feel like the longer this winless run gonna go, I mean, there's already some frustration in this Dynamo fan base. I've heard that they had a protest that was going on, especially toward their GM Matt Jordan. But yeah, you can definitely see there is a lot of frustration in the Dynamo fan base, and I won't be surprised there is going to be somebody that's going to let go this offseason, because in some way you could maybe say that as much as they're trying to rebuild, on paper it didn't look like they're rebuilding. It looked like they're still trying to believe that they can make that one last push before they can rebuild. But I just feel like this team needs to go through a rebuild right now, and this season it's basically showing where they're kind of still stuck on that MLS 1.0 mindset, while everybody else has already moved past that mindset a couple of years ago. But now moving on into the last game on this board is the game that I've talked about in the preview as really the best game that is not really kind of a rivalry or kind of like a derby in Heniken Rivalry between SKC and the Colorado Rapids. And I was really hoping that the Rapids can actually put a better performance and effort in this game against SKC compared to the last one, where it was kind of like a battle between two teams that could potentially meet each other in the playoffs in the Western Conference. And this time, the Rapids did show some effort, and you could even argue they probably could have won this game if they didn't miss some big opportunity late in this one. But early on, Lewis did go through on goal in the 5th minute, but he missed that one high before Shinishiki did drag it wide in the 11th minute. There was a shout for a handball for SKC that was not given, but ultimately the Rapids would take the lead, and well-ly deserved so, because I thought they were the better team, as Jonathan Lewis would be the one that gets the Rapids the first goal of the game. But that being said, SKC did immediately try to equalize. Zuzi did puts it wide from close range in the 23rd minute before Yarbrough had to deny a red-hot Daniel Shaarawy in the 33rd minute, and then Russell puts it high on the header as SKC was pressing for the equalizer, and they would get the equalizer not long after I wrote that. It's Johnny Russell scoring one of his trademark free kick goal to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Now in the second half, I thought SKC kind of picked up where they left off as they continued to try to push to trying to get the go-ahead goal. Yarbrough had to deny Shaarawy again in the 53rd minute. I thought William Yarbrough had an incredible game in this one, and you could maybe even say that he might be one of the reasons why the Rapids were able to at least get a point, because there were some good chances, for SKC2 to get the winner. Ilie had a header that goes go straight to Yarbrough in the 55th minute before Jonathan Lewis probably should have scored the second goal, not only for the Rapids, but for himself too in this game, as he went through on goal, but unfortunately missed that one on target. Yarbrough then denied Shari in the near post in the 63rd minute before Mark Anthony Kane hit the post from a long range effort, and then Rosenberry was trying to fall up as that ball smacked off the post, but unfortunately he put that one wide. And really, this game was kind of up for grabs. I mean, there were chances late in this game, and it almost kind of in some way felt like it was a playoff kind of game where, when you have two really good teams dueling out each other, you just feel like potentially with the game still tied up and with chances going through, one of these teams eventually is going to get that winner. Polito tried to give SKC the winner in the 77th minute, but he fires it wide on the volley before Johnny Russell tried to score his second goal, and he thought that he scored his second goal, but a heroic clearance there from Austin Trusty to prevent the Rapids to give up a late goal in this one. But that being said, in the third minute of stoppage time, they also had themselves a chance to win the game, as Cole Bassett absolutely missed a point-blank range from 4 yards out. And honestly, I just feel like Bassett. So, I've said before Cole Bassett has been snake bit. He is officially snake bit. Like, that is one that I just don't know how in the world does he miss that. And if this was a Cole Bassett that can be in a good form like we saw from the past season, he would bury it. But because this is the Cole Bassett we've seen this season, hitting post time after the time, and I believe this was also a moment where he actually hit the post from 4 yards out. Yeah, I mean it's just one of those kind of a form that he's been in, and he's also gonna definitely think about that for a very, very long time, especially after this game, because that would have given the winner for the Rapids, but instead they have to settle for a 1-1 draw between them and SKC. As the shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 8 that the Rapids had, 9 shots on goal compared to 1 that the Rapids had, 7 shots off target compared to 6 that the Rapids had, 4 shots out of block compared to 1 that the Rapids had, and possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession that the Colorado Rapids has in this game. But overall, I think when you look at the stats, I know it feel like SKC were by far the better team in this one. It actually wasn't. I mean, when you look at this game, it was kind of relatively even, and this feels like it's just one of those games where the stats doesn't really tell us the story of how competitive and how even this game is. But that being said, after seeing the highlights of this game, I would also want to say that, yeah, I want to see this game in the playoffs, because anytime when you have two teams going toe-to-toe with each other and looking to try to get a winner, that is a very playoff kind of type of game. And yeah, there definitely is a good chance that both of these teams could be meeting against each other in the playoffs, and when that does happen, it's going to be interesting to see who, of course, will get the crucial winner. But that being said, that is pretty much it in terms of looking at the 7 games that happened in terms of match week number 22 of the Saturday action. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 7 games? Next week, of course, we will have once again another, well, actually not another, but a 9-game action, because next week is the international break. But we are also getting to the point where it is the World Cup qualifier, and I will definitely do a review talking about the first World Cup qualifier that the U.S. are going to be played against El Salvador. And unfortunately, during that game, I think the game is going to kick off at 7:05, and I literally have a, well, I wouldn't say an evening shift, but more like a late afternoon shift on that day, and I won't get off work until 7:30. So there's a chance that I'm going to miss like maybe the first 20 minutes of the game, and depending on if the boss man let me leave a little bit earlier, or maybe like last time where he actually let me leave a little bit later because they didn't finish up all the thing in time before the store closed. There could be a chance that I might miss a significant part of the first half of that game. But I'm gonna try my best in terms of maybe watching that game, even though I am going to be working, because that game is a massive game. And in fact, this is the part where we're as the season does wind down, I know there's a lot of these teams that is trying to get some crucial wins to get themselves set up for that home stretch to be in the playoffs. But you also got the national team, who are really in these next next years or so, this is really the measuring stick for this national team to see whether or not have they basically forget to move past that embarrassing moment that happened in 2017 and get some redemption to get themselves back into the World Cup in Qatar next year. But yeah, there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.